All right, looks like we're slowly but surely going live on all platforms. Alrighty, guys. If you can... Howdy, guys. It looks like we are live. Let me double check everything. I want to make sure you guys can see us and hear us. If everything's okay, show us thumbs up. So... Welcome everybody, guys. It's good to see everyone who's watching us right now. Welcome, Matt.
Welcome. Good to see you, Anton.
Good to see you too. Good to see you too. It's been a couple of weeks, a good 2 or 3 weeks or so, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, it's exciting to see all of you guys joining us today, whether you're watching us live right now or you're joining a little later. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. We were trying to find a language as far as what those things are, but it's in the air and it's pretty thick and it's pretty tangible. You'll see what we're referring to. So we're going to be talking about awakening to fundamentals is what we called. So there's something going on with us kind of going back to fundamentals, and I think we're missing something is what it seems like, right? And out of this conversation, hopefully you'll kind of agree with us. Then we're going to talk about paradigm shift towards everything being user-centric, right? Mm-hmm. Number 2, and then is transparency a new business reality? So, all right, guys, with this said, let's go ahead and get started.
Let's grow together.
Well, Mr. Matt, really quick, what's your state of mind? Which is my way to say, ask you, how you doing, man?
I am feeling elite, as our old coach used to say there. You should be feeling elite there, but it's been beautiful. This weather in Chattanooga, Tennessee is just incredible. We got 70s, sunny every day, cool mornings, no excuses not to get out there and work out. Little rain blowing in here, right? It's coming in, but glad to have a little fall rain here and enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, good. Glad to hear this. Yeah, definitely. I would say my state of mind right now is exhausted but excited. So there's definitely lots of things kind of happening going on, and so I know you guys are we're all kind of into rolling our sleeves and just kind of deep into the grind. And so if you're a little exhausted, it's okay. Just get some rest and don't waste those meaningful moments in the evenings so you can. Be actually resting, relaxing.
I saw a clip this week. Yeah, I saw a clip this week, Anton, and it was kind of, it starts out as like, it's going to be inspirational, but it was just some days are just kind of a disaster, and you just keep trying to pick yourself up. And the video is basically like, sometimes it's just not your day, right? And you should go home, call it a day, rest up.
I like that.
The universe will be better off, right, tomorrow, get back to it. So hopefully you're not having a day like that there, but it happens to everybody here. And like you said, a lot going on in the world right now. Stressful for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons out there, but that's part of why we're here and to help sort through some of that. If you're feeling the same way as well too, right? I think a lot of people are going to relate to what we have to talk about today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it definitely takes community, right? It's one thing to kind of deal with your own issues, problems, and sometimes even thinking, like, I find myself in a situation thinking, am I the only one who's seeing this?
Right.
And all of a sudden you start just kind of running it. Let me run it by Matt. And so, literally, I would call you up, right, and be like, Matt, am I crazy or something? And Matt would be like, no, I'm basically on the same page with you. So,
feel it. Yeah, you see it. Feel it. Yeah.
It does take a community, guys. So just hopefully you've got that network, you've got that mentor, you've got that protege. Maybe you're at that point, but just connect with people. I think there's something very meaningful about it. So, well, let me do a quick setup kind of for our first subject here. First matter we wanted to discuss is, so I think I start finding myself in a situation where I start needing glasses, right? So, and every once in a while, when I get tired or something, my vision is not clear, right? And so I know there's all kinds of exercises for your eyes and things like that. But the point is, sometimes I want to see something very clear, right? And there are moments where it's not possible, right? I wonder, if that's the same way for some other things other than just physical sight, right? what's unclear in your life, right? What are you trying to figure out? What's fuzzy? What's kind of blurry to you? And are we? And on top of that, let's also think about this kind of idea of Matrix, right? Let's remember this movie Matrix. And is there any sort of like a summon going on? Is there any sort of have we been told myth, and collectively we agreed to believe in that myth, right? Cheap capital, dependency on gas from one supplier who happens to be a dictator, right? So dovetailing that into this whole thing that's happening in the world these days, we just came back from Europe when we had a chance to just chit chat with some random strangers out there on the train. We got stuck on the train for like an extra hour, so it was 2 hours total, and it was just we just had plenty of opportunity to like chit chat with locals out there and all. And people are very unsettled, I should say. There's a lot that's everybody is fully aware of Ukraine, Russia situation that's happening out there, and so, and here's my question. And Matt, help me understand. Maybe again, see, maybe I'm crazy here, but how in the world? We talked about this. I think it was 3 episodes prior. We talked about at some point in 2001, Germany had 17 nuclear reactors, power plants, right? Essentially, and that's where the energy came from. Right. Then the Japan situation happened with nuclear power plant, and we said nuclear power plant is not good, which the rest of the world says it's fine, right? But okay. Then fast forward to 2019. I don't know what the current situation is, but in 2019 they only had 3 active nuclear power plants in the country, from 17 to 3. Now there's a big gap in energy demand, right? So where does the supply come from? Well, it happens just miraculously. Miss Merkel, right? Angela Merkel happened to have a friend whose name is Putin, and apparently she's in good terms with this guy. And it happens that somehow now Germany depends on Russian gas more than it ever depended on anything in its history. Now, and here's the thing. So, and I'm thinking, okay, business major, student, freshman, going to in the first class, some sort of a business fundamentals, right? Let's call it this way. That's why we called our subject. Let me put our first title here. So, awakening to fundamentals. Like you're going your first class in your first business major class ever. It's a general, and they say, you know what? It is not good to be dependent on one supplier. It's just very fundamental, very simple, basic principle in business, right? How in the world, Matt, and I'm looking at you, I'm looking at everybody here who's listening to us, like, guys, help me. How in the world can a major macroeconomic region be dependent on a gas supplier, energy supplier, a single one, 76% of gas before war started, 76% of, carbon, I guess, non-renewable carbon ones, the oil and gas, was coming from Russia. What in the world is going on? Like, how... It's just not smart. It's not good, and it happens.
Think about some of the other business fundamentals, though, right? It's, don't you want the lowest possible cost for your inputs, right? Don't you want to sometimes simplify operations instead of maybe 10 suppliers for a similar type product? Don't you maybe just want 2 or 3 out there? So I think ultimately what it comes down to, right, is that price. Gas was cheap, right? Coming from Russia. It was cheap. It was plentiful. Nearby, right? Could be pumped over. You figure Russia needs the money. You figure they're not going to do anything too rash, like they have done, but not necessarily the case. But 76%, right, of the gas and energy, right, depending on another country. That just seems
happens
crazy
to be dictatorship
and irresponsible. Right.
There's no rule of law. It's just one single guy's decision.
Even if you were best friends, right? Like even if this was, let's say, between U.S. and Canada or the U.S. Great Britain, right? Like we would never do that. It would just be irresponsible to
just not smart.
to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. And so again, we're awakening to, and hopefully we are. And see, and that's where I'm thinking we were all told a myth, and we all just kind of choose collectively to believe in it, right? What other fundamentals are we not recognizing that are out there, and like what else is there, and what other risks, fundamental systemic risks that we're not paying attention to? They're about to blow up in our face. And I'm kind of thinking about economy, right? Is there something there? So, yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
so it's we yeah. So anyway, I think another piece to the fundamentals is think of stock market, right? Think of overpriced, underpriced assets, right? Think of companies making a profit, right? Something as simple as that. You're in business. The whole point is for you to make profit, right? But no, we kind of live in this reality to where, well, showing profit is not a cool thing. Spend all you can, raise the funds, right? Run on cheap capital and cash until you look like you're a legit business, then sell yourself to another, larger organization, and off you go. That's how you make money. Is that a myth that, again, we choose to believe in? All of a sudden we see, and again, go back to our prior live streams, we all talked about that there's is money drying out, right? That's an insight we just recorded not long ago. Is the money dried out? Startups are not receiving nearly as much funding from old white dudes that they used to.
Yeah.
And so is that another reality? Is that another fundamental we all kind of have to wake up? Like, what, making profit? Something as simple
Right.
as that. And is there something is coming up here, right? We discussed that a couple of times, like layoffs, economy, right? Let's hopefully you're prepared for what's coming, and I believe it's starting early next year. We're gonna see something, because again, 9 months lag for monetary instruments is about to be there, and so we're gonna see some changes. Well, Matt, let me open up, I guess, another kind of sub conversation here about value, right?
Yeah.
Fundamentally, right? So if you're in business, right? If you have a product or a service, right? And if you are in business, you do. You provide, you make product, manufacture product, or you provide a service. Waking up again to the fundamentals that would say, Matt, what's the value that you're providing with your product or service, right? What problem are you solving, right? Is that essential? Is that something to kind of go back and maybe rethink, revisit?
Absolutely. I think right now, right? And stepping back a little bit on this topic, right? And you've hit on them both. It's kind of growth versus value, right? And they even define that as far as investment funds. What type of an investment fund is this? Are you after growth, right? In which case, growing that top line, right? You might not see those earnings come through, right? Or the value, are you harvesting some of those investments that you've made, right? You have higher margins, you're growing your business out most likely slower, right, to elevate. But the markets tend to get, and all of us tend to get focused more on growth. It's more exciting, it's more fun, it's more speculative, some higher returns at times, until it all kind of comes back down, right? At which case, that value fundamentals start to take over, right? In the markets, right? The stock market capitulates, right? It drops down, and then it's you're kind of looking through, you're sifting through, right? Trying to find that value. I think fundamentally for businesses, though, we have lost a lot of that. And, Warren Buffett has always been one historically to kind of call that out with Berkshire Hathaway, right? He's not one for trading speculative. I'm going to buy this because another company might buy it out for more in a couple years. It's fundamentally, does this business have long-term value, right? Can it be protected, right? You call it kind of moat around your business, right? Does it have some protection around it? And it's good to see that kind of coming back into the markets, those discussions, a little bit more reasonable as far as the prices of the stocks. So I think we're getting a little bit more grounded, and of course it's great to talk about that as it relates, particularly with a lot of the businesses we might be talking about our own businesses as well to make sure there's that value there fundamentally. Hopefully you've, trying to make some earnings to maybe reinvest back into your business, right? To grow that out slowly, strategically. It's very easy to start making dumb decisions, right? When there's just a lot of money, right? You go through, you get a $70 million raise, you need to start spending that, right? Because that's theory is supposed to last you maybe another year and a half, right? Until your next stage. And that,
Yeah, because I'm just thinking as far as like if you want to expand the capacity, right? Say you're making stuff or service capacity, you used to be like, well, I could do it at any time. I just pull off a loan and it's pretty cheap. And here's my additional piece of equipment, right? But now, well, good luck getting a loan. I mean, it's pretty expensive, right? So
you really need to be able to justify it, right?
Exactly.
But that can be good in a lot of ways, right? Because if you're a patient, you see the opportunity. Okay, yep, I can get that piece of equipment. Maybe I can get it used. Maybe some of these other businesses that paid a fortune for it, right, have gone under, pick those up. Now you can get in the trap too of moving too slowly, right, while your competition around you, right, is surging ahead. So of course, kind of depends on what business that you're in, but I think it's good to be in a business that you can continue to, elevate it in some way, right? Maybe that's buying an office building, right, or another location, right? That okay, if that business doesn't work out, you could still use it for some other warehousing or commercial purposes to it there, right? To build up some of that fundamental base first. And then maybe when the time is right, you see that clear opportunity, you've got the assets, you own the assets, maybe you want to go ahead and leverage them in some way, right? To really double down and accelerate, or to maybe purchase another business out there too, right? That's complementive to yours. But I think you're right here. I think it's really a return to value at this point here, and really probably for the next, year and a half. We talked about that 4 or 5 months ago. Like, buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy road. I still get very frustrated in the news when I see. It's almost like we're coming out of this. We're almost there. The Fed's changing their mind on this stuff. Like, no, they haven't. They're very clear on what they want to go. That they're going to break inflation. It's been a while since we talked.
At all costs, from what it seems like.
The CPI, the inflation numbers are through the roof. Now you're hearing companies like General Mills talking about it's here. We're looking to take another price increase as well too, right? There's no turning back from that. And we get in this inflation spiral where nobody wants to give an inch on their earnings. So what do? You just raise prices, right? But then everybody else kind of raised prices as well too, right? Until something kind of snaps in the economy, it breaks, right? Kind of brings everything back down to, sifting through that value rather than just spend, grow.
Yeah. And speaking about economy, I mean, hopefully we're not getting in a situation where we're kind of taking our sweet time as far as correcting that inflation, because you slow down the growth of economy significantly, but you're still running into inflation. That's called stagnation plus inflation. That's the worst you can of a position you can be in. So hopefully we're not.
It's like Japan, right? Like nobody really talks about Japan. It used to be one of the hottest economies out there, right? It was growing like crazy. It was taking over our automobile market. And they got in a situation like that where it's been slow, stagnant growth. You've got to be more prudent on the spend, right, of the country, and it just starts to slow things down there. So a lot of economists, some very prominent ones that are running very large companies, right, like the Jamie Dimons of the world, he's being extremely clear out there of the concerns out there and the warnings, and it just doesn't seem like people really want to listen to that. Now, it's great that we have still some strong fundamentals out there, like employment. There are a lot of things in the economy that are continuing to emerge. Biotechnology is just a really hot market, right? There's more and more opportunities in that space. AI, automation. There's a lot of good signs as well too there, but you're right. The economy has clearly just gotten overheated. Fed didn't act quickly enough. Everybody likes to keep a good thing going. It's good times when there's a bubble and you're there for the ride, but look out when it pops, because it's going to be a bumpy ride down.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So anyway, guys, I guess the conversation is all about, like Matt is saying, situation is changing, right? The economy, we'll see. But based on what we're seeing so far, I mean, it's going to slow down significantly, right? The interest rates are going to go up, and I just hope and pray you'll find yourself in a situation where you're ready, you're prepared, and this is the time to do it. It already started. I mean, we see, I think you mentioned a little bit about what Facebook laying offs, right? There's a long list of companies that are freezing, hiring freeze is one, laying off folks two. So now you may run
Even
into a situation
Microsoft,
yourself.
big companies, right, that are doing,
Yeah.
they're doing still extremely well, but they're entering this new phase, right, of, hey, we don't need to grow so fast. Not everybody's throwing money at this. Let's kind of tighten our belts a little bit, return to some fundamentals. We're still in a stronger position than our competitors, but maybe we don't need to be, spending that much that quickly.
Yeah. And so, of course, it all is going to affect us as, we all work in a team, have a team, right? And so you may be faced with the same decisions, right? Layoffs and things like that. And so hopefully you've got a plan. And hopefully you've got a plan not just to, I've got a resource, right? Human resource. Let me kind of get rid of it kind of thing. Hopefully you have a plan to, those are my people, right? So hopefully you've got, a weather the storm kind of plan to where, hold on to them as long as you can, because that's those people is everything.
Plan isn't just crossing your fingers, right, and hoping the economy rebounds, right, in the next 12 months, right? Fundamentally, there's still a lot of good, solid fundamentals out there, but it feels like we were talking about earlier, right? Like there's a lot of shakiness to it where you take out a couple pieces, right? And all this could change very quickly as far as the mood, the attitude. People are saying, I'm out. I'm pulling my money out here. I don't like this. We're going to sit on the sidelines for a while. And that can be very difficult, right? When everybody's trying to run for the exit at the same time.
Yeah.
So a plan is being prepared, right? Where you have cash on hand, right, for the next 12 months, right? You could, if your business goes down by 15, 20%, right, you can still weather this out, right, for the next 12, 18 months. That's what's important, I think, to, fundamentally for your business, to not leave that shakiness there. If there are things you can do to shore it up now, do it now, because it could just get much, much more difficult later.
Yeah, definitely. So anyway, guys, things are changing, things are shifting. The matrix code has been glitching for a little bit, and we just hope and pray that it's not going to go too far, but it's hopefully you're awakening to fundamentals, right? Speaking about value, just to really just kind of wrap up this subject here. Keep in mind, again, remind yourself what value is in what you do, right? And okay, let's not go too far. So maybe you're a Gen Z, you just got out of college. Let's not go too far. What value do you provide in your team, right? So your resume, what does it say? Like, what do you stand for? Like, what's the value? What kind of problems are you solving? Because again, if your product, your service, if you as a human being are not optimized to solve problems, if you don't kind of have that value add, again, why should I buy your product if it doesn't add value, right? Why should I pay for your service? Why should I hire you, right? And so again, let's all remind ourselves that kind of almost like rethinking, square one. Forget about everything that I've done so far. And let me start from this again, square one, and get to where ask ourselves question: what's the value? What is the problem that I'm solving, right? What's the solution? What's the product? How do I package my product? And if you arrive to the same place where you are right now, great. You're in a good shape. But if you that journey, that mind exercise takes you to a different place compared to where you are right now, maybe it's time to shift gears. So again, those are very fundamental things, very kind of, again, square one. And we're told them somewhere in the freshman classes in college, right? So we somehow forgot. We somehow were told a different myth that, oh yeah, cheap capital, we can patch, we can plug holes, right? Well, if it's a hole, it needs to be. Yeah, let's fix it. Let's not just patch
Yeah.
it, because those patches are not holding well for some reason. So, but anyway, to kind of go back to things that we've mentioned in the beginning that we're going to be discussing here. So let's shift our gears a little bit here. And Matt, this is pretty interesting. This is always kind of exciting for me to somehow discuss this.
Yeah.
There's been a paradigm shift, right? We have a whole episode on this. Revolution, I think we called it, like join the troops revolution kind of thing. User-centric design, it's all around us, right? Every once in a while, we have a touch point with a brand, with a product or service that is a little bit archaic, right? It smells a little old. It was pulled out of some sort of an old box with just old books, and it's got a certain like smell to it. And then there's a brand that's like, whoa, this is cool. This is fresh. This is exactly how I would do it. Thank you, right? And that's being on the user side, right? On the user end. This is what we all go through, right? Oh, that's a new phone, right? Like Matt right now is using what? You're using your phone as a webcam? I mean, explain that to us, because that's mind blowing.
Yeah, no, well, it's just kind of a new feature there with Apple, right? With the latest Ventura, the iOS release there. And yeah, just had some fun with that today there. I can pull out the camera, walk around, show it off, right? It can be all wireless and hook it right back up. You can use it to, brighten up the face, darken the background, blur out the background a little bit there. It's, it's what we talk about. Sometimes we get we can be a little bit negative sometimes on this thing or that, but it's like, it is pretty neat, the technology and what's changing out there. And
so check this out. So there's a company out there who's saying, you know what? We're all carrying a pretty good cameras in our pockets. Why don't make a web camera out of it? And somebody like Matt said, this is a pretty good idea. I'm not gonna lie, this is an Apple product. I'm not an Apple fan, but every once in a while, Android has a catch-up job to do with Apple. So this is one of them. But how user-centric is it, right? How incredible and how easy and how wonderful it is for the consumer. Now, question is, again, this is the trend. It's been changing, right? Human behavior.
Yeah.
We're very used to opening our garages with one button, right?
Yeah.
We're used to holding our phones and calling anybody we want in the world. Within a split second, we talk to them, right? We're getting used to these kind of things. And I think there's something remarkable and something really cool about the fact that there's so many organizations spend a lot of money, a lot of like mental power to think up, right, new ways to do that. And so my question is, and I'm looking to everybody who's watching us right now, are you a part of it, right? Are you a part of the problem-solving kind of gang, let's go this way, mentality, right? The paradigm shift needs to happen. And it's moving so fast to the point that, we see this all around us, right? We see a product that is like, it's more and more and more and more of what I've dreamed about, right? And it's getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, which is, again, it's user-centric, right? Low price, user-centeredness. And so, and then, okay, Matt, Gen Zs, let's talk about Gen Zs, right? Here's a little thought that I kind of, I keep seeing it everywhere, and tell me what you think about it. I think Gen Zs, every time I talk to somebody from that generation, they're kind of finishing college right now, so kind of picture like a younger person, so to say. They're one of the most reasonable group of people out there that I ever get to talk to. They have to. They're kind of screwed up. They're in a situation where they're not given much, right? At least that's the kind of individuals that I'm talking about, and they're driven. They want it. They're smart. They pull up spreadsheets. They're in the process of kind of buying a house, and all of a sudden there's a spreadsheet. Oh, trust me, there's a Google sheet. It's not even an Excel. It's Google sheet where calculations are running through, and that's their decision making. Versus, I'm thinking about a baby boomer, a classical baby boomer. Oh, let's buy a house. Why? Because I love it. Let's go. So I think there's something about that user-centeredness that's very engraved into the fibers of kind of how Gen Zs are operating, right? And I see them as like one of the most reasonable group of people out there.
I think they're always looking to optimize as well too, right? Is one of the characteristics that I noticed, right? Where they're not afraid to speak out about something and calling out, right? Like, how do you punch that up? How do you make that better, right? Like, how do you elevate it? I think, yeah, you might talk to a boomer, Gen X, they might be a little bit more hesitant to like, I don't know if I should mention that because I've been taught at my work, right? Like, if you're going to talk about that, maybe you talk to your boss about that privately. You wouldn't want to embarrass them or the group because then you're showing that, you know, you're doing something wrong, right? Something could be done better. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting characteristic with Gen Z and in particular in problem solving. You know, I met a young guy there. I think he was maybe 27 at the coffee shop there, started chatting there and, you know, a lot of energy, super sharp guy there, but yeah, gets assignments from the boss, the CEO. He's got a good sized team there, but if it's a complex problem, they just can't figure it out. Like they just give it to him and they just let him kind of handle it.
I love it.
It's kind of tricky because, you know, he's got a title, but he's kind of works in a lot of different areas and he's just great at problem solving like that. So he's like, yeah, they'll, you know, he's like, they're like, hey, do you think you can do this by Thursday and like next week? I'm like, yeah, okay. And then so he'll go ahead and have it done by Tuesday. He waits a day, right? Because you don't want to do your work too quick and turn it in, right? Otherwise they just give you more work.
It doesn't look good on you.
Yeah. So he'll turn it in a little bit early on Wednesday. And, you know, but that's where he's just kind of built out a reputation, right? Of like, hey, one way or another, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to provide a solution and maybe totally outside of the box, right? Because I'm not tied down, right, with all these past practices and what could go wrong or what group might not like that, right? It's just, like you said, I love that term. It's just, how do you one button things, right? Like, how do you make this so simple? You reduce those 3 or 4 steps to just get it down to one step, right? And when it happens, when you set that up, you create that, you almost don't know it any other way. Like, how could it be any other way? But from a design standpoint, right, that's where businesses add the values. That's where creators.
That's not an easy thing to do, right? To make something simple. I mean, it's incredibly hard. And what it requires, again, hopefully you're listening, whoever's listening right now, like you've got a product, right? You've got a problem to solve. And I mean, it's iteration after iteration, and it becomes a little better, and then a little better, and a little better. But then you look back like 15 years back, you're like, whoa, we've gone, you know, way further than we ever thought. And so, yeah. So Gen Z, speak about Gen Zs, that's the largest market segment out there ever lived, right? We didn't have wars for quite some time. There is one happening, but say U.S. We didn't lose man, just in bulks, you know. And so again, there's a lot of kids. There's a lot of kids that were you know, millennials had a lot of kids, and so so Gen Zs, again, think about it, it's the largest market segment out there. You need to start selling to them now. Fundamentals, right? User-centeredness is what we're kind of discussing today. Is trust one of those fundamentals that we all kind of forgot, right? Gen Zs, again, every time you talk to them, I mean, it's very, very apparent. I mean, it's in the conversation every second. It's all about trust, right? It's kind of like a currency, right? Gen Zs interact with brands. Read a great book. It's called Gen Z Frequency. You'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. They interact with brands differently, right? So they look at ingredients. They look at, like, if you're saying no sugar added, but one of the first ingredients is vaporized. Correct me if I'm wrong. What do you call this? Vaporized cane juice.
Yeah, evaporated. Yeah,
evaporated. Yeah, evaporated cane juice. That's sugar. That's freaking sugar. That's cane sugar.
Right.
Now, so Gen Zs are kind of looking at this and be like, well, like, why did you have to lie? You know, just put stevia in there and call it no sugar added. But you're tricking me. Like, I don't like that. Trust. I need to trust you if we want to do business.
Well, those ingredients, they used to not even be, you know, they weren't always on the labels back in the day, right? Now it's very clear on the labels what ingredients go in there. But even within that, right, sugar wasn't really broken out in the way it is now, right? Now there's added sugar. And that's completely changed my behavior when you start to realize how much sugar is added. And it's almost, I think the number was close to 70% of the products, right? 75%, I had read, of added sugar, right, to products. And there really needs to be the consumer awareness, right? Whether it's food or other type of items that kind of push back for that, right? Because naturally, for most people, that sugar tastes great. And if this product has more sugar than this other product, well, I like that product more, right? That happen to have sugar. But if it's not transparent on what's going on, right, you just kind of keep upping and upping some of those things that may not be necessarily so good for you, right? So I think you're right. There's a lot of trends there for whether it's food, whether it's other items, right? Maybe it's laundry detergent. Like, what's in this laundry detergent, right? Like, I want to know, like, okay, Tide, I trust you. You've had a long history there, but I don't know anymore, right? Because everybody's just trying to kind of make more and more money, make it for cheaper and cheaper. So that's where it's a real opportunity, right, for brands that provide that transparency, that even create kind of that transparency. It might be an item where maybe fundamentally there's nothing really wrong with it, but they're the ones that shed the light as far as like, hey, these are the type of ingredients that we use. We feel it's better. Here's what they are. Now it's up to you, right, to make a judgment. Maybe you think it is a better opportunity for you and your family to use a cheaper product, right? But maybe you want to play it more safe. You trust our brand. You see what we're doing here. So maybe you want to go with us, and maybe that comes at a little bit of a premium there too.
Yeah, definitely. And you remember how back in the day, I mean, in a TV industrial complex, right? Let's call it that way. It used to be that you were the soap. You got on the prime TV spot out there. You happened to have millions of dollars to put in the advertising.
Yeah.
Well, you're in business, and you show up in store. There was Tide, right, as a soap, and all of a sudden, like these days, we've got multiple brands. I mean, even Tide is not Tide anymore. It's all natural this, natural that, extra strength. They're segmenting themselves in a whole spectrum of different ways. And again, more and more brands, like Seventh Generation is a great brand that's like no smell kind of soaps, and then all of a sudden, like, you see a huge following. It's like it's kind of like, it's not even following. It's kind of like early BMWs. It was like, it's like a cult,
Yeah.
Seventh Generation. Like, this is one of the best things out there, guys. I keep hearing it from just all kinds of areas, and all of a sudden, you go to Target. It's a mainstream brand. Where is Tide? So do you see how you can lose this game fairly quickly? Because again, Gen Zs are stepping up to the plate very, very quickly here. You gotta be selling to them, and the currency is trust. So Matt, tell us a little bit more about you. Every once in a while, you're a food expert, right? In a sense, food. How would you call it? Food marketer. Let's call you this way. Food marketing expert. You've worked at Kellogg for a number of years. It is still your passion, your interest, right? So every once in a while, I see you calling me through a video chat, right? And you'll be like, "Hey, I'm in New York." And I'm like, "Man, what are you doing in New York?" And so you go to food shows, right?
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit more about about brands, and how what's the thing of how they're planning, trying to figure out like the whole market and Gen Z thing.
Yeah. Well, the food business there, right, that kind of rolls up under this CPG business, they call it, right? Consumer packaged goods, right? So this could be food. It could be for other items as well too there, right, for that model. But as it relates to food is very interesting because a lot of times we think of our diets as very kind of static, and we kind of have the same things, and we know what we like, but it changes, right? It changes quickly. There's always something different, new, exciting, something with less sugar, something with, something that's going to, sometimes it gets marketed too much, right? Like, it's fundamentally going to change your life and make everything wonderful. But that's kind of good marketing, right? As far as trying to set up the valuable attributes, right, for whatever product that is. So I just got out to a show there, Philadelphia Natural Products Expo East. They do a big Expo West. 4,000 vendors come out for that one. This one in Philadelphia, very large as well too. but it is a combination of a lot of smaller brands up and coming. So they may have maybe it's almost just an idea, but they have a few kind of homemade samples. And then there's other larger companies as well too there, but not often your big players are at this particular one out in Philadelphia. So it's really interesting to see over time what changes. So regardless if you're in the food industry or whatever industry you're in, it's great to get grounded, right? If there's a trade show that's going on for that particular thing, right? Maybe you're making toys, or maybe it's kind of in the services industry, right? You're doing home repair, things like. There's different trade shows out there for that. So it's good to stay grounded in your industry as far as what's changing, and you see it oftentimes starting with smaller companies, smaller brands, quite a bit more often than the large companies. So I think that's why we kind of got in that crazy rat race of these larger companies just buying out these smallers. You would think the large ones with their army of R&D and wealth and cash, like, no problem, we're going to create all these better products than what these little guys could do. But no, it's often the smaller companies that they see a niche. It's very fundamentals first. They know what is there, what is true. They take the risk, they go after it to build that out. So that's what's great to go to shows like that. And yeah, sugar reduction is a huge one there. Using monk fruit, using stevia, right, has been there for, I don't know, 6-7 years, yes. Something like that. Yep. Yeah. And you're seeing those products push through in the markets in a big way. So you see them showing up at Costco. It's not just this little niche group that's interested in this. Now, have the big companies
and the reason those shows are important, right? So I think you skipped something. Purchasers go there, right?
Oh, yeah.
So if you're a small brand, how much is a table out there? I think you told me the prices.
Well, for that show, I mean, out in California at the show out there, that's the one. If you're in that business, everybody goes out there. When I calculate the math on that, you're basically paying about $1,000 an hour to kind of be out there. Between your show and some of your travel and so forth there. So yeah, you can drop easy 10, 20, 30 grand just for a table, a smaller table. But you're right. That's where the buyers come out to as well too. So right, as it ties back to potentially your own businesses, right? Where are the actual buyers at for your business? Because it's not always just, okay, I'm setting up a website, I'm selling it on Amazon. It's maybe a larger service or a project or opportunity there.
Because that's how you get on the shelf.
Trade shows. Yeah. And you learn so much when you go there as well too. You're going to learn by talking to those potential customers there. They'll tell you and push them, ask the questions too, right? If you know that's a customer you want and they're not interested, just, tell them like, hey, I can tell you're not interested in this, but could you just do me a favor and tell me what we could do better here, or what would make you interested in it maybe next year, right? To get that feedback. Because I think we all tend to not want to seek out kind of what's wrong with us or our business, right? Hurts a little bit, right, when you hear those things. And to have that growth mindset, right, like we preach, you've got to have that. You got to take it, right, own it, and say, great, I just learned something extremely valuable, right? That's going to change my business. It's going to make it stronger.
And those feedback loops, I mean, they're important not only with customers, right? Because, customers, it's extremely important because that's the person who's going to be purchasing your product or service, right? So that's, you got to start there. You want to design a product based on the feedback from customers. But I was also thinking as far as feedback loops with people, right, is what I would call it. Customers, number one, right? Team members, right? I think you mentioned just before we started the show, you mentioned that there's a saying out there. It's kind of like your employees are your first customer.
Some companies, right, are always like, hey, the customer comes first. There's other companies, right, that say, actually, our employees are kind of first.
I love
that.
I love that.
Yeah.
And if feedback
Yeah.
loops out there, especially right now, I mean, where labor shortages are widespread, getting somebody to work for you sometimes requires a sign-up bonus, and you're like, what in the world is going on, right? Especially if you're in the healthcare industry and things like that. So team members is huge. So building that or implementing that feedback loop, right? Just ask them, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about that? Is there anything I can do better? Right. And then
Yeah.
provide them with the feedback. Be kind, be nice, and just say, hey, this is great. This is great. This is great. Can we work on this piece? I would
But
love
just
to
think about it.
see some
Think about it too, right? For that show where, okay, it's been another year, right? Or another 6 months, you go out to the other show, you see that same buyer, right? When I'm talking about buyers, right? These large stores, Walmart, could be a Best Buy, right? For electronics, right? They have buyers. And a lot of times it's basically one or two people really for that
Just roaming
category or
around.
that product, right? And it's very relationship driven. So that's where it's important to, you see their badge, you see that they're a buyer. And next year, the next time you see them, you can say, hey, remember me, right? 6 months ago, you gave me this advice, change these things, right? We did that. And also we did these other things here too. What do you think about that now? Well, you kind of got them on the hook at that point, right? Where it's like, oh yeah, I did give this person advice 6 months ago, and they listened to it. And you know what? It looks pretty good. I think I do like that product. I think I will bring that in, right? So listening to them, I think also builds that tighter relationship, right, with them as well too, right? To potentially then to pull them in, because
Yeah.
a lot of times, it's very relationship driven, and some buyers are more like show me the numbers, but a lot are still like fundamentally comes down to a relationship, right, with that person. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that buyer stays around for a year or 2 years. Back in the old school days, a Trader Joe's, right, they'd be around for quite a long time and they had a long memory history. But now, they tend to move around a little bit more. But fundamentally, for whatever business you're in, like the more kind of personal you can make that, and not just, pitching them something, but actually just taking the time, even if you're in the area, just kind of keeping those communication lines open. Hey, I'm in the area, there's whatever game's going on, right? Got an extra ticket here, or hey, just see if you want to catch dinner. It just keeps you in front of them, a little bit more, but doing it in a genuine way, right? Not like you're trying to bribe them, or, like a genuine way, right? Then you can tell when people are being authentic, and it's okay. Like if people are being nice and they have something to sell that may or may not be of value, that's fine, right? It's why not have both?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So again, feedback loops with people, like Matt was saying. So the way I think about it is customers, team members, partners, right? Partners being purchasers in your case and things like that. But yeah. All right. Well, sounds good. So let's shift gears here a little bit and go towards kind of like our next. This conversation is kind of like organically evolved into this, right? And so the matter that kind of like we're getting to right now is this whole feedback, right? Getting connected, right? Working with people on a particular project, right? As a community, maybe we could do something together. And all of a sudden, we kind of approaching this whole idea of open source, right? And creating something that is very transparent, right? So really dovetailing into what we just discussed here is with ingredients, right? With the way certain things are made. You want to be transparent, right? You want to clearly say, hey, this is how I make money. And this, I give this to you because I care, right? You want to separate the two, right? And the thing is, again, speaking about Gen Zs and the market that's out there right now, is that's very expected. You'd be like, if everything is like, oh, here, this is free, this is for you, Gen Z is going to be like, well, how do you make money then? Right. Well, Google,
selling my information.
Google, you give me a free Gmail, and it's one of the best email services out there. What's the trick, right? And then be transparent, right? I guess that's the point. And that's a new reality, right? New business reality. And if there's some sort of a sale happening, right? People can see through. And so hopefully you're on a bandwagon that says the more transparent I am, the more open I am, right? The more open source. Think of open source licensing, right? Think of it. You've designed something and you're giving it away to a community. And you say, hey, if you branch off of this technology, now you can sell it.
Yeah.
You can choose to sell it, right? There's that kind of open source licensing. But it's there for our community's sake. And guess what? Those open source products are one of the most effective out there. It's this whole freemium kind of model based, but at the same time, there's this kind of paid feature to it. But it was designed by community, right? Like I'm using this application right now, and I think I mentioned this before. Matt and we had this kind of like more extensive conversation to where like, how do you make notes? And I'm already like I'm at the point where I can share some more details on this, but like guys, there's a whole different way how to take notes and how to organize your knowledge. There's this open source community kind of application. It's called Obsidian, right? I'm obsessed with Obsidian. Let me just put it this way. But it was designed by a community, and then the foundation that was in charge of designing it, they said, hey, you want to sync this application between your phone and the computer and other devices. $10 a month, and this open source license, wonderful product, all of a sudden is being synced, and it's easy, $10. You can make money. But the thing is, it is transparent, it is open, there's a community connected to it. Now that's a whole different level, right? And I think when we're talking about Gen Zs and that new market, I think that's what we're looking at right now, right? So transparency, let's talk about transparency. Down to earth corporate communications, right?
Yeah.
It used to be suit and tie, some formal language. You're confusing people more than you're communicating with people, right? Look at some of the brands out there, Taco Bell's of the world, right? Costco's of the world. Best Buy's even. I think I heard something about their Twitter account just kind of being crazy right now. Everybody's trying this kind of new thing of being, I guess, authentic, down to earth. Like, what's the term? Like,
it's like organic. It's like, it's just keeping it real, right? Yeah. And it's okay to be a little bit funny, right? Or to not be perfect, right? Like, it used to be if there was a little error or misspelling on something, that's terrible. Now, I think we were talking about that. It's like, it's not the worst if you just go ahead and misspell it, and leave it, because now everybody jumps in and they want to call it out and your engagement goes up. And so, do the best you can, but, don't be so obsessed, right? That you waste all this time trying to craft something where it's just like, you know what, it'd be more authentic if you just get it out there. It seems more real. People are going to resonate with it more. It's not so manufactured.
But what if I know something about my brand, my company, my people that makes me protect myself by this formality? Right? Isn't this why and how it was we kind of gotten to that point, right? And all of a sudden you're saying Matt, you're telling me now to be transparent. Well, hold on, all that's going to become visible, right? All my ingredients are going to be on a display, right? Like if I let my people post on social media on behalf of a company, oh my goodness, like it's going to go crazy, right? Versus other brands, other companies are like, grab your phone, let's go. And I think that pushes me to kind of into thinking of like maybe the reason why companies, just the whole framework prior used to not be transparent, because we were hiding something, right? And all of a sudden right now you're in a plain view, right? We're doing this event live, right? You may be listening to us and recording, but we're doing this live. If I need to pick my nose, I need to pick my nose, there's no any sort of polishing things up and all. I remember days when I would wear suit and tie, right? And somehow that was a thing. But not anymore. And so there's advantages to it, but I think there's a lot of risks that you're opening yourself up unless you're really kind of cleaning things up again, you're being transparent. Like you're not just faking it. You are. Yeah.
There could be a couple things too. One is maybe you are hiding something, right? Which, you need to deal with your conscience on that one a little bit, right? It could be that the industry is changing, and now instead of this material, there's a completely different product, right? That is like, wow, that actually is way better. It's cheaper. does a better, job. But there's also oftentimes it's kind of that perception about certain things as well too, certain components, certain ingredients in food. Food is nonstop in that way. And hopefully it's continuing to evolve, right? We've seen to have better quality products over time. Now, it hasn't always been like that. It went in a real kind of spiral decline. But hey, back in the 80s, the more ingredients you had in your product, the cool, like it was fine. That was cool. Didn't like, it was just like, hey, like this is great. You can have all this like new foods, right, that we didn't have before, all these different, Cheerios and just different unique things, right, that wasn't there before. But that's where it's that transparency, right, within that community, like you got to reconcile it eventually. So I think it's best oftentimes, right, to kind of put that out there, explain it, and you're gonna get pushback on anything that you put out there. And let's just take eggs, for example, or coffee. Coffee's been on a pretty good roll. Eggs have been on a pretty good roll. But there's time when, man, eggs are going to kill you. The next day, like they're going to save your life. Like coffee, like it goes back and forth on these different on products. But you try and adapt, right, to what you feel I think is right, what'll work and market as well too. Your product, if you're selling a product, you could, a lot of times, almost always, you could make that product better, but the market may not support that yet, right? So that's kind of up to you as the brand to communicate what is the value of this. Maybe it's more valuable than what most people had perceived before. Let's take, for instance, around here in Chattanooga, kind of one of the owners came from here, is marketing out of here, Liquid Death, right? The water, Liquid Death. Like just raised $70 million, right? 700 million valuation. It's water, right? But it does have some
in a beer looking can, right?
in it. Yeah, it's a very like, well, I don't want to say dark. It kind of looks that way. It's definitely very rock and roll, right? Most people have seen it out there by now, but they don't take themselves too seriously when it comes to things. But I think they use like agave sugar, 3 grams, right? Pretty modest amount for a tall boy, a large can. Tastes great, right? And Whole Foods was one of the first ones to pick them up because they had aluminum cans. And the aluminum is infinitely recyclable, right? Instead of all the plastics. And they're like, hey, this is unique. This is different. It's water at the end of the day, right? Like that's not a business I typically recommend people to go into, right? Is like water, granola bar, like everybody's kind of into that. But they saw kind of a unique value proposition there, right? And they saw that, hey, there's a lot of products that are 0 sugar or it's got a ton of sugar. It seems to be kind of one or the other. Yeah. 3 grams of sugar, if it gets you drinking, right, that much water, it's really enjoyable. It fits your social occasion, maybe a little bit more wherever you're at. If you're at a concert or just with some friends, maybe it's, it's great around Halloween, right, with the design and everything. Then it's like, there's ways to take something that seems plain Jane and kind of elevate it to a new level. I think brands and products, they often undersell themselves. They want to try and sell it for cheaper, right? They want to be that lowest cost provider. And it's like, why start there? That's a bad business to start out because
it's tough.
There's always that tendency versus like, I don't care if I sell a bajillion units. I'm going to charge a higher price. I'm going to provide some really unique values to that. That's going to be valued in the marketplace, right? And then I'm going to test it. I'm going to get feedback. Yep, you're right. If we took out this one, overpriced component of it, not very many people really value that out there. Okay, we can make that a little
just break
cheaper.
it into 2 segments, right? I mean, make one with sugar and then call it big transparency, right? Is what we're referring to, talking about here. So write it in big letters, sugar. It's organic, whatever sugar.
Well, Mountain Dew did that, right? Mountain Dew did that 3 years ago, 4 years ago. They were like, Mountain Dew made with real sugar. It was a retro throwback type
Boom.
of a pack.
Yeah.
Actually, it was about probably 5 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was a
So the
trend.
second
Sugar was
segment,
coming back because they were burned out of all this, like,
yeah,
all the artificial sweeteners that were out there. People are like, yeah, I don't really believe in that, right? Fundamentally,
yeah,
I'd rather have regular sugar than whatever this other stuff is. Maybe it's better for me, maybe it's not, but I'm hearing a lot of bad news on it, right? So I'm going to trust with real sugar, right?
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so break it up into a couple of segments and make one with real sugar, big letters and all, transparency.
Yeah.
And then make another
Yeah.
one with stevia, monk fruit, agave, and things like that. So, yeah. Well, guys, we've been here for quite some time live.
All
And
right.
so this whole transparency, let me kind of throw this one thought maybe to our community and see what you guys think about it. But so if you are as curious as I am and you see a news about Elon Musk lawsuit and things like that, you go into the court documents, because that's what I do, right? And then I stay up until 3 a.m. That night reading a court document. Now, the court document, I think you would enjoy it as well. It's Elon Musk's text messages, right? So I'm not for any sort of things like that. I don't think it's really cool that personal communication can get to be pulled and somehow court subpoena makes it a thing. But it's out there and it's public domain, so. You download this document. Let me know if you need it. I'll drop it to you. But it's amazing and wonderful at the same time. So Elon Musk's texting lots and lots of people. Some of them you know, some of them you don't. And he's discussing just all kinds of business matters. I think this is one of the best reads out there for business majors. You see a whole lot more in how the guy thinks and how he makes decisions, how he's asking for money. Like there's a couple of texts out there. It's like, hey, are you in with me on the Twitter deal? How much can you put in? Can you do 1 or 2 billion? And the guy goes, sure, I can do 2. And it's like, okay, done deal. I'll let you know. It was all done through text messages. Crazy. But one of the things that struck my attention was speaking about open source transparency. Just the guy, and I know there's a lot going on about Elon Musk, and I don't think he's all that we think of him. I think he's a human being, just a really cool dude, extremely cool dude. But him and his brother, they were texting each other about something, and so they were discussing a change to algorithm for Twitter. And his brother's name, I forgot his name, starts with M. His brother is basically saying, hey, dude, what do you think about creating an open source algorithm, right? And Elon Musk is going back and saying, hey, yeah, that's a great idea. Why don't we create an algorithm and post it out there so that people can see what exactly it entails to be, right? And anybody can audit the algorithm. Because I'm just thinking as far as these days, like, do we know why Google prioritizes a certain piece of content, like certain website page over the other? No. Do we know why, say, Facebook puts certain things in our feed? And that creates all kinds of problems, right? I mean, we talked about this earlier, Matt. Like the way elections are being ran these days, how we kind of being siloed into this little community of people who think alike. And that's great and wonderful, right? But at the same time, we're not being exposed to other ideas, right? And that's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
We don't see the full picture. We don't have we forgot what it is to have an argument. Argument originally is the word has a positive meaning to it. Like we say scientific argument. Great, science. We are expanding, we're proceeding further because there's a good argument happening. But somehow it's not happening these days, right? And so the guy is basically saying, Elon Musk is saying, why don't we create an open source algorithm and let everybody who wants to edit the algorithm can edit it? And I think that's the future of where we're headed. And I think Gen Z culture is going to play a big role in this. And you know how they say that famous Russian hockey coach, he was saying, oh, why is your team so successful? He says, well, because a very simple thing. I teach my people to, instead of going where the hockey puck is, it's too late. I teach them to see where the hockey puck is going to be and go there. And so staying ahead, understanding what's happening in next year, right? The economy, understanding what's happening with the culture, Gen Z, transparency, openness, just kind of understanding what's tomorrow holding for us and being optimistic about it. I'm extremely optimistic when it comes to future. And yeah, hopefully you guys all have a chance to kind of think about these things. maybe plan something for the future. It's never too late. Like, let's go. Let's create something cool, wonderful, and super, super awesome. Instead of just looking at the war, at the scandals, and who's suing who's being elected, and all that stuff. Let's just go. Like, guys, you're in business for a reason, right? Remember that. Like,
Yeah, I think it's that first principles thinking, right? It's when you know something fundamentally is true, right? That's the type of thinking that Elon Musk has, right? Where because you can have ideas, you may be passionate about it, you may think it's a great idea, but can you really examine it all the way around, right? That this is fundamentally true. This is
does
going
it
to
withstand the
happen in the
examination?
future,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. Can it withstand the examination? Yeah, that's a great point there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And find people that are honest with you, right? That will give you that feedback, because a lot of times your family won't, a lot of times your friends won't, right? They don't want to hurt your feelings on that. But if you're investing your time, if you're investing your money, don't you want to absolutely be sure about something, or confident, right? That is going to happen. It may not happen, right? That's when you talked about that earlier. Like, that leadership is what cuts through that kind of fog, right? Because it can be confusing on which direction to go, right? They were talking about upper level leaders, CEOs, right? That they get enough information to make a decision, where other times, other people, myself included, a lot of times, right? You might be slow in going ahead and making the decision because you're waiting for more information. You want to be, you and I talk about this a lot, right? Where it's like, we like to be sure about certain things, right? We're always like, when we buy something, it needs to be the best, right? Or the best value for what it is, right? Where sometimes it's like, okay, if I would have had 70% of the information, right, in certain situations, that's good enough. It's better off sometimes to make the decisions, right, versus waiting for it to be 100%.
Yeah, exactly. I like the saying. I think one of my friends, I remember telling me this. In legal system, right? We kind of figured something out, and I hope we all kind of take a lesson from it. So just think about this: we're all idiots, right? And including myself. But there's a magic happening when you put 12 people, a jury, together, right? Somehow, collectively, we are better people. Like, they trust those 12 people, someone's fate, right? Someone's future, whether that person is going to go to jail or not. Somehow being together, 12 people getting together, we're becoming a bit more objective, a bit more just better humans, so to say.
Yeah.
I think we're balancing each other out. Someone's saying that like a group of people has a collective IQ of a genius, right? Statistically.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, individually not.
Right.
So, guys, you're just a piece of a puzzle. Just think of yourself as such. Like, you're part of the system. And attach yourself to something larger than you. Like, I don't know, what would you call this? My moral advice, so to say. I'm nowhere near to where I should be probably giving these kind of advices, but like, attach yourself to something that's bigger than you. Like, stop making it all about you. Make it transparent, make it awesome, make it cool. It will be hard. It will be uncomfortable, like Matt was saying, right? List your ingredients. Let people judge you, right? Work through this. And at the end, as an outcome, your impact is going to be greater because you somehow, those 12 people, right? There's magic happening. So when you combine your efforts and, together with somebody, that synergy, creates a really, really good product, service, outcome, and hopefully the future for us all.
Yeah, there's a lot about that 12 number, right? A lot of things in history, right? A jury, the 12 disciples, a lot of boards, right, are made up of 12 because you know what? You probably don't have 12 parent siblings, right, to run this idea by, right? You start to stretch out a little bit more, right? And if you've got a product, hit up 12 different people, right? Write it down. Gonna hit up 12. Bounce this idea off them, different ages, different backgrounds, different intelligence, to kind of get their, what do they perceive about your product, your idea, and where you're going with it. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
guys, we have been here for quite some time, for an hour and eight minutes. I always say this at the end. If you have been listening to us, being at the gym or driving somewhere, especially at the gym, I'm proud of you. You've been uncomfortable for long enough. Now go get some rest. Go get some protein. Get some creatine, whatever you drink out there, and get yourself back in shape and rest. So it's very important. Well, Matt, it was great chatting with you as always. So always
Good
look
chatting
forward
with you,
to
Anton.
these chats, these live streams, and so hopefully you guys got some value. Let's continue this conversation, guys. And if something out of what we've discussed kind of touched you, let us know. Like we're really excited to every time hear from you, talking about feedback and things like that. Let us know. Just pop in on the next chat here. Just let us know you want to be in it, and we love guests here. We'll try to get Daniel, Nico, maybe Alex, some other folks to be part of it next time, and let's just continue this conversation, guys. And it's always better together. Just remember that, right? So it takes community to do anything. So, Matt, thanks a lot again. Hope you guys all drive safely out there, and stay tuned. We will talk to you guys soon.
Bye-bye.
See ya.